Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on the 3 flavors of Sitecore Cortex, how machine learning helps marketing. Our goal in this webinar, Peter Anderle from Sitecore has graciously offered to be part of this with me to help you debunk the myths around machine learning, as well as introduce Sitecore Cortex, and then show you how people are getting started with machine learning and Cortex. A quick introduction. Peter, I'll let you go first.
Hi everyone, I am Peter Andrei, and as my job title implies, I work in Sitecore UK as a member of the SBOSS team. We are helping clients and partners to get the most out of the advanced marketing capabilities of Sitecore Experience platform. Over to you.
Thanks, Peter. Hi, I'm Jana Baumgartner. I'm the Director of Strategy and Architecture at Altudo. I'm also a Sitecore MVP. I've been doing Sitecore for the last 7 years. Prior to Altudo, I worked on the client side of Sitecore with one of the largest staffing and recruiting companies in the country and managed a 30-person Sitecore team of developers, testers, BAs, and marketing strategists. Sorry. A little bit about Altudo before we begin. At Altudo, we are a global digital marketing and technology agency focused on creating personalized customer experiences. And Cortex, of course, is a part of this in terms of taking personalization and personalized customer experiences to the next level. We have a breadth of expertise in the marketing technology arena with a variety of MarTech platforms, but Sitecore is our bread and butter. We consider ourselves to be an inch wide and a mile deep with Sitecore. Our main focus is Sitecore and hence the inch wide, but we're very deep with Sitecore with almost with over 150 trained professionals and over 200 Sitecore projects delivered successfully. We also have a lot of Sitecore connectors and accelerators and reusable frameworks, and I will show you one of these frameworks around machine learning today. Over to you, Peter.
Okay, thank you. So let me just go to the next slide because just let me click that. All right, thank you. Before we jump into the machine learning topic, just allow me to say a couple of words about the Sitecore Experience platform itself. For those of you who are not familiar with the product, Sitecore Experience platform provides digital marketers with the ability to manage digital customer experience through a set of capabilities such as content management, personalization, predictive profiling, content and personalization testing, and it's all across various channels from one tool. We are doing something right, obviously, because Sitecore has been recognized as a leader in Gartner Magic Quadrant for digital experience platforms. Clicking. Yeah. And now let's talk about the basics of the machine learning topic of this webinar. However, before we actually get into the machine learning, I believe it's important to take a moment and sort of make sure that machine learning is in fact the right approach to whatever business problem you are trying to solve. Just by reading the mainstream media, one could think that machine learning is the ultimate solution to any kind of needs, that it will provide answers to pretty much any question you might have. Unfortunately, this is not true. If you look at the process much closer, there are at least two steps requiring human beings. It's not completely based on machines. It starts with a marketer formulating business questions, such as which content works the best for a particular customer segment to convert on specific digital goals, or what is the typical behavior of customers that are about to cancel the contract with the organization. And then it goes to a data scientist, providing a marketer with data-driven answers to these business questions by choosing the right algorithm, by training models, by working with various data sets. And obviously, it's all processed by the right machine learning technology. And speaking of business problems, there are also some limitations, as not all questions can be, tackled by machine learning. So, when to use machine learning? Basically, when you can answer yes to these questions. The first one is the business question complex enough that it cannot be answered by a simple set of rules? Can you replace human judgment with statistics-based prediction? If you have representative, structured, and labeled data relevant to the business question that you are asking. And also very important, can you allow for some error in answering the business questions? Also, it needs to be said that machine learning is an iterative process. It's not a case of collecting data, training a model, and producing insights, on our answer to your business questions, if you will. And this will be valid forever from the beginning to the end of the world. It is necessary to measure the impact of the insights to make sure that it's still positive. And if not, adapt your models, retrain your models, maybe you will switch your algorithm. So again, machine learning is not a magic box which can run unsupervised, unmanaged. It still requires human beings. If you look at some of the main types of machine learning, we can categorize them as a supervised learning with models using labeled data, unsupervised learning with no labeled data available, typically used for clustering the same patterns. Then we have semi-supervised learning, combining both types, and reinforcement learning, in which the model is trained by cycles of trials and errors. For all these machine learning types, there is one thing that is really crucial, and they have something in common. It's the data quality, relevancy, and volume that is crucial to produce actionable insights out of machine learning. If you look at the three most common machine learning use cases, or how machine learning is used in marketing by marketers, it's to recommend products or other content like articles, to score the probability of a person to become a client, so in lead nurturing, or to score the probability of a client to become an ex-client, right? So in churn prediction. If you want to have a closer look at what resources are required to run a machine learning program. So it's technology, it's data, and of course people, and people with the right skill sets following the right processes. Since machine learning is based on data, it's data-driven, process and approach. Let me start with this element first. As I already mentioned, we have the right data. To have the right data is crucial, and not just the volume, but the relevancy to the business question, right? So, transaction data for commerce-related questions, micro conversions for brand-linked questions, and so on. When we're talking about data in Sitecore world, it basically means to have correctly defined and set up digital goals, outcomes, profiling, campaign taxonomy, content tagging. You basically cannot skip that part even for machine learning program, not just for simple rules-based personalization, for example. Very often I get the question, how much data do we need to collect to get some reasonable results from machine learning? A very simple question, which does not have, unfortunately, a simple answer. It depends on the complexity of the problem and the learning algorithm, how many attributes are taken into account, and if you need to consider factors such as seasonality, which may have an effect on the data. However, to have at least some rough idea, the critical mass of data can be seen as 10 times many data instances as there are features, meaning data attributes. So if we have, for example, 4 features, the device, browser, country, time, you would need 40 samples of data to get some actionable insights out of the machine learning program. As for people, there are 3 main roles in machine learning, besides all the usual suspects such as developers, project managers, product owners, and these roles are digital analysts, uh, helping the marketer formulate business questions, select relevant data scientist, selecting proper algorithms, managing the model, and a technical social architect supporting the data scientist from the technical point of view. In Sitecore, it will be to assist on tasks connected to XDB, XConnect, and all the integration. Now let's move on to the last piece of which is technology. Uh, in Sitecore, the umbrella name of the machine learning technology is Cortex. So let's take a closer look at that piece. Very briefly, as I am a digital marketer, some of the things Cortex brings to the table from the technical point of view in Sitecore XP 9.1. So it's a scalable, distributed processing of Xcode data, direct integration with machine learning server. However, you can bring your own data science tools if you already have some, or if you prefer other vendors than Microsoft solution. And also integrating message bus, to communicate between the machine learning platform and Sitecore. So if you want to integrate actionable insights, provided by the machine learning platform, you want to integrate that into Sitecore to execute on those automatically. The integrated machine bus is exactly the tool to use for that. What it all means for a digital marketer, which functionalities Cortex makes available in Sitecore Experience Platform 9.1. So it's personalization suggestions, predictive outcomes, and content tagging. Personalization suggestions is an out-of-the-box functionality built into Sitecore XP. What it does is that based on content test results, it provides suggestions on additional rules which would generate uplifts in conversions or engagement value based on personalized experience. These suggestions are provided only when a content test is run and they need to be manually activated. So there is always a task for a marketer to evaluate those suggestions. To give some idea what you can expect from the personalization suggestions, so this is the list of the rules taken into account. The list includes conditions based on countries, landing pages, number of visits, trade goals, profile matches, outcomes, and of course the various combinations. Another capability that Cortex brings in Sitecore XP 9.1 is the automated content tagging. Using a third-party natural language processing platform, so it is a little bit different technology than for personalization suggestions or the predicted outcomes. It enables to automatically tag text content in Sitecore. In a nutshell, a content editor can select an item to get metadata for automatically from a tagging service provider. Out of the box, it's Open Calais. Uh, it's this service is working primarily in English language, but Spanish and French is also supported with some limitations. However, again, if you prefer a different provider for the tagging, you can easily plug in whatever you find on the market. It's a very pluggable solution. To show you what you actually can get from that functionality. So this is what Open Calais can get from a short article on Brexit. I'm from the UK, so I found it really relevant. So what I did was I fed this short article into Open Calais, and Open Calais spit it out, you know, the categorization. It categorizes the article within the taxonomy. It generates social tags. Uh, the reason of having items tagged sometimes it's really unclear, and sometimes I get this question: why should we have that for items in Sitecore? The reason for that is to basically improve findability. But also with some development, these tags can be used for various personalization tactics or for profiling, for predictive profiling of intent, for example. The last piece of Cortex functionality is so-called predictive outcomes. This one is the 800-pound gorilla of machine learning, requiring the full architecture, starting with Sitecore XP, XConnect, processing engine, machine learning server, message bus, and a custom facets plus customer personalization rules built in. Uh, the predictive outcomes functionality, it's not basically, it's not really a functionality. It is an example of a model that can be used to predict the probability that a specified outcome, specified, business result will be generated by a visitor or, or a contact, as we call them in Sitecore. What it does is that the model searches for patterns shared by visitors who generated a particular outcome. In what way their behavior is similar, such as they all come from one country, they triggered goals in a certain sequence and not visit a specific page. And the closer to this pattern a visitor is, the higher probability there is that this particular visitor also produces the same outcome. Based on that, you can very effectively personalize content, right? So, or you can send email to push the visitor towards the desirable conversion. Predictive outcomes, as I already mentioned, is the full-blown machine learning project. For illustration, these are the main steps which need to be done to fully launch it. So it's not a magic box, it's not a magic button that you just switch on and it works. As you can see from the digital marketer perspective, it all starts with having all the analytics defined and set up, the right data points configured, personalization tactics prepared, You cannot skip this phase even with machine learning, because this is the data that you will actually feed the model with. And how much time all that can take? Well, obviously it depends on availability of all required resources, but just by estimate, it's about 8 to 12 months. Um, so, well, this is all from me about Cortex and machine learning in general. And now I hand it over to you, Jana.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for that great insight on machine learning and Cortex. Right. So I'm going to take the conversation into talking about uh, machine learning, specifically with a client example, just going through everything um, that Peter talked about. So the first piece is data. Our philosophy at Altudo is keeping data simple as possible, so that you're able to see um, the wood for the trees. Going down that route, the key data elements that we focused on is the default analytics data that you get in Sitecore. So that's page views, time spent on pages, especially combined with tagging, profiles, goals and engagement value, and then a few key points of external data that you can get from your map, CRM, or an IP lookup tool like Demandbase. So first, our focus on out-of-the-box psychoanalytics data. And this is actually the data that, just this data is what we will use in our demo towards the end of the presentation. So what we're using here is the pages that a user visits and the amount of time that they spent on each of the pages. In this case, we're using a travel website as an example. And these pages are the actual products offered by this company. So by visiting several pages, you will be placed into, our algorithm will create clusters and you'll be placed into one of these clusters. And the cluster may define a few things, such as what kind of product you're interested in, like Africa versus South America, and then what adventure the product has, such as small ship versus small group adventures. Based on that, you can show different banners. So for example, for the Africa small ship adventure, we can show the banner on the bottom right. And then for the South America land adventure, we can show the banner on the top left. If we increase our data dimensions by Sitecore profile, so here are the main profile cards and keys that we've associated with this website. So the destination of interest basically groups it into Africa, South America, Arctic, Europe, etc. Experiences of interest include things like food, nature, shopping, culture, people, things that people would be interested in doing while they are on the trip. Adventure types may include things like small ship versus small land group versus large land group. Household is the number of people in your family generally taking these adventures with you, such as a duo adventure might be you and your significant other, solo might be you alone, or a family adventure could be something that you take your kids on. Activity level is how much activity you're required to have in the adventure, but also how much activity this person is generally gearing towards. Where one is very little activity and four is a lot of activity. And then it also classifies what trips they ultimately bought. This allows more clusters as well as more information in the clusters. So for example, with the Africa trip, now we have two types of things like food versus nature. And that way we can show, for the same trip, have different images show up that may excite the customer coming to your website. If a customer is more interested in food rather than nature, you could show them the image on the right, which is for the same product, versus somebody who's more interested um, in actually taking a, in seeing nature, may be more excited uh, by the image on the top left. With goals and engagement value, basically we can figure out what path users are taking as they decide on buying the trip. So there are many different paths that a user might take, and we can also place them in what phase of the journey in their buying cycle that they are. So whether it's awareness, engaged, or whether they've bought the trip and become a customer. Different trips may have different paths to purchase. For example, if you're going to Africa, you may want to do a lot more research before you're ready to purchase. And even when you're ready to purchase, you may want to talk to the salesperson before you actually purchase a trip. Versus if you're going to Italy, people may be more geared towards buying the trip without doing a lot of research, as well as buying it online. So your clusters might be able to tell you what are the right calls to actions to show out here based on where the user is in their journey, as well as what is the right call to action based on their profile, as well as what's most likely to get them to eventually convert. If you show them basically buy a trip when they're still in the research phase, they may be turned off. So basically having them try to watch a video first while they're in the research phase, then perhaps view dates and prices, then book your adventure. Once they've booked their adventure, allowing them to personalize that adventure, allowing them to share their story after they've gone on the trip or explore their next adventure. From an external data perspective, this is especially true for B2B companies. Having data that comes in through an IP lookup service, such as the company that the user is coming from, the size of that company, the revenue of that company, the industry, and then you can gear your content, not just, you can personalize your content not just based on profiles and behaviors of the visitor on the site, but what company the visitor is associated with, such as you can have content for smaller companies versus larger companies, products that may be more suited to smaller companies versus larger companies, or different industries. Um, Having data come from your map or CRM tool can take you to offline conversions and not just online conversions, such as beyond requesting a sales callback, you can have things like attending traveler events or making sales calls that could also be part of that buying cycle. So going back to what Peter discussed, the three types of machine learning associated with Cortex. The first one being A/B testing, the second one being tagging, and then the third one being the predictive outcomes. So I'll talk to each of these with a client example. So we run these A/B tests on these product pages uh, where we have different calls to actions instead of views, dates, and prices. For example, you could have build trip, check availability, or get started today. And this could segment your, using Cortex here, can segment your data to show the right call to action based on what goals you've triggered so far. So for example, if you've already viewed dates and prices, this call to action might change to build trip. Or if you are looking at the Africa trip, for example, you may see a call to action um, such as view dates and prices, versus if you're looking at this Dalmatian coast and Greece trip, you might see get started today or check availability. also based on the profile that you are. In this client scenario, for this trip alone, for this product alone, there are 63 videos, 1,000 plus photos, 633 traveler reviews, 2 traveler stories, 8 types of personalization, and a ton of different information right here. So tagging all of this content could be very difficult. And tagging the content is extremely important to allow for the right personalization, even with machine learning. Um, so this is where a content tagging through machine learning tool can come into play and be very useful because if it's able to identify nature videos versus food videos or nature photos versus food photos, we can really focus this content area that you see on the right, which is a fairly small area that's above the fold, focus it to show the right content that might allow the user to get engaged and be interested in the trip. Showing the wrong content might put off the visitor if they're more interested in food, for example, or are more focused on reading stories and looking at reviews rather than watching videos. All right, so let me show you then a demo on how we are using machine learning, our machine learning algorithm. So this is on the Habitat Finance website. This is the default banner that you see on the website when you come to the website without having done much. So basically, if you see right here, the only thing the visitor has done so far is go to the home page. If you click around on the website, so right now what we're doing is clicking on just top level navigation items, just researching what this website, what the finance, this company, this financial company is all about. So this triggers a few different pages on the website. And it also automatically captures the duration on each of these pages. Now going to the home page, we're put into cluster 5 through our algorithm, and a focus is on knowing about finance since we click those high-level pages. Now, a second visit, a different user, again coming to the website without doing much. This time we're focused more on the personal portion of the website, specifically around loans. And now if we look at our engagement, we've gone to a few different pages around loans and have also the duration. And personal banking, we're placed in cluster 1 and we see the personal banking banner automatically here on the website. So looking at how we're doing this is our algorithm in Azure Machine Learning. The first thing we do is get all of the contact records, all of the data from the contact records. So this is basically directly from Sitecore what's stored in the contact data store. This is all of the columns, 351 columns stored in that contact data store, all of the pages that they've visited, and things that they've done in each of the pages. All right, after this, we select certain columns that make the most sense to us to actually use. This is where we go into keeping it simple and being able to look at being able to identify the wood for the trees. So here's all the available columns, and basically our main focus is the geo city as well as the pages that the visitor is visiting, just the pages and the amount of time that they're spending on each of these pages. We clean up the data further and cluster it. And this is, again, done real time so that as more visitors visit the website, you get more data. And then we assign the visitor into a cluster based on their probability. So you can see that the visitors are added to one of these clusters, and it's based on the probability of their probability into each of the clusters. So here they're placed into cluster 2 because they have a 0.35 in cluster 2, which is their highest probability. And then the visitor below is placed in cluster 0 because they have a 0.35 in that cluster. So on and so forth. All of the visitors are placed into a certain cluster based on the pages that they're visiting. Then we've set up a web service in Azure. That basically has a request and a response that calls this algorithm. So our request has the items, the items that the visitor is viewing, as well as the duration that they're spending on each of those pages. And then the response is the assignment, which is the cluster that they're placed into. Now in Sitecore, what we've done is we automatically set up these pattern cards under our machine learning profile based on the clusters that are created. So they're just very generic sample 1, sample 2, sample 3, sample 4, sample 5. And these pattern cards are automatically generated. And then within the personalization engine, we set up personalization rules to show certain content based on the cluster that the user is put into. So if they're put into cluster 5, they see the cluster 5 content, and so on and so forth. So that's a high level on the predictive outcomes that we're doing for our clients. And that's it at a high level. Thank you, Peter, for going over all of the things that Cortex can do, and I have shown you how you can use these on your websites today with some examples on what we're doing here at Altudo. All right. Amit, do we have any questions from the audience?
Let me check, Jana.
All right.
So there's only one which says, let me quickly rephrase this. This is a bit broken. Hang on. Yeah, so yeah, the question is, we are using Sitecore 8, and how should we go about implementing machine learning? I think that's what it says, yeah.
I can take that. Peter, please feel free to jump in. So with Sitecore 8, I know that Cortex is unavailable. However, the demo that I showed you can be done and was done in Sitecore 8 using Azure Machine Learning. So there are other options. So predictive outcomes machine learning can definitely be done using Sitecore 8. You would just have to use other channels of machine learning, such as Azure. Peter, if there's anything else you would like to add, feel free.
No, it's just yeah, it's just getting the data out of Sitecore, right? So out of XDB, there are many ways how to get that. Obviously via XConnect and all the architecture that comes with Cortex is much easier. But whatever happens after that, if you are using what type of machine learning solution you're using, it's really up to you. So yes, with 9.1 Sitecore, it's easier to get the data out of Sitecore XP and get the actionable insight into it, but it doesn't mean that it's exclusively for a 9.1 version. It can be done for Sitecore 8 and most likely even for lower versions.
So for our audience, if you have any further questions from our panelists, please drop us a line at marketing@altudo.co, and we'd have the panelists answer your queries via email, or if it's possible, via personalized phone call. So just send us your queries and we'll make sure we answer them all.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.